All right, it is indeed a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It is the 31st of May 2023. Tarehe 31 mwezi wa 5 mwaka 2023. Natumai kwamba uko salama. It's the Siasa Wednesday edition, 31st of June. 31st of May 2023. And it begins right now. Kama kawaida hapo ni joining, please like when you like we get to know. Watching us and please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. When you join in, please like when you like we get to know that you're watching us. And after like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Tuko na Governor P. Muchendu. It's been a while. We haven't seen him here. Lakini nilikuwa kwao nikashangaa. We. Uko ni Kenya? Nikakuja. Ai.
Ushinde kama pini na kudanganya.
So nikasema, so whenever I see you here, I know it has really taken a lot of sacrifice for you.
Now you understand when I tell you I live in the village, I exactly live in the village.
No, I understand. And I can only imagine the days I've called you early in the morning, as a matter of urgency, and you still show up. Showing up from the villages.
I think you should be telling our viewers that every time you invite me, you should be sending me some fuel because you appreciate the distance. But as I've always told you,
as a bishop, I can only bless you.
I've always told you it's because we love doing what we do. We have come from far. We have steered this ship from the word go, and this is like our small baby. So whenever we are called upon to come, we will always do because we feel we are a part of this.
Mm-hmm. Good to see you, my brother. Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Much appreciated for showing up at my dad's event at my church. Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, Bitok can speak in Kikuyu. I hope when I send him the video speaking Kikuyu, he will be courageous enough to share it. But it was an honor to see you and also to see another member of this show, Ruth Mbogo. And I really appreciate your coming and coloring our event.
Thank you so much for inviting us. And I always tell people, ukiwa Nairobi, kuna lugha ambayo hufai kukosa kujua, inaitwa Kikuyu. Kina Muchendu anaweza kukuramba ukiwa hapo. Lazima ujue, ndio ujue zile wanakuseti, you have to know. So it was very nice interacting with you guys there.
Yes.
I was interacting with the church and getting to see your dad as well, celebrating 35 years of service, I think.
Almost 40 years of service. 40 years of service. Yes. Okay. It's been him and mom. I think almost just a little bit of part of my life where I have lived without them being pastors. Maybe they became pastors when I was about 3 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have served. They are now on their way heading out to go and retire. Mm-hmm. So we really appreciate God for even allowing us to have them for those years and allowing us to see them flourish and also shape our destiny to where we are today.
Amen. Right. And as a bishop, I want to tell you that there is no retirement in the service ministry. The work of the Lord continues until we get to heaven.
I'm telling you.
But not the Shakola way. The one where Jesus himself comes and takes us home. We also with Brenda Ongalo. She's also a second time on the show. So she's not very new. Good morning to you, Brenda.
Asante sana.
Good to see you.
And good to see you this morning. And yeah, let us see the ins and outs and of what the finance beholds for us, because sahi nile tunasema mulichokichagua kimeanza kuaramba.
You're looking very fresh this morning. What's the news?
I'm just happy to be alive. Yeah.
But you got a check?
It's end month, so natuko vibaya vile. At least maybe it could be the last paycheck we get without whatever excess taxation on it. So tufurahie tu
ya mwisho.
Alafu leo ni Friday, kesho ni Friday pia itakuwa
Friday. And every day is Friday.
Yes.
All right. Since the mic is still on you, will you pray for us? I'm going to Sunday school.
Let us pray. Mighty Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the gift of life. We pray that as we set off the show, you may put words in our mouths and our thoughts that would inspire and would not, would provide solutions. Let us not have words that would divide us, but to bring us together. We pray that you may take care of us, take care of our leadership. May they give us sober decisions and give us peace. In Jesus' name we pray, trusting and believing.
Amen. Amen. Asante sana. Thank you so much. Also, let us know where you're watching us from this morning. Let us know where you're watching us from this morning. This is the Tackle the Siasa Wednesday edition of the 31st of May 2023. Brenda amesema leo ni Friday, kesho ni Friday, Friday ni Friday, Saturday ni Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Let us know where you're watching us from this morning. Isaac brought it to the thing tuned in from Narok Town. Good to see you, my brother. Good morning, Gerald. And how is Arizona University doing? I am in Kenya. I have not gone to the United States of America, so I don't know how Arizona University is doing. Maybe you might have to prove it. I'm an ila certificate ya nini ya madaraka day ya last year. Ilikuwa madaraka ama ilikuwa jamhuri? Jamhuri, eh? Yeah, labda hiyo ndiye anaulizia. Sijaenda kusema kweli, sijaenda huko Arizona. So wanauliza mimi. Aricha Ibrahim tuned in from Kisii. And good to see you guys from Kisii. Kisii, Joan Gerono, no matter how busy we get, this is home. Good morning, Gerald. Honored to be watching from Vancouver, Canada. Good to see you. Good to see you, Joan. And thank you so much for always sacrificing time to ensure you can join us every single morning. Every time. Thank you so much for staying up and ensuring that you're part of this conversation every single morning. We really appreciate it, and we don't take it for granted. Baraza Edship anasema njoni hapa. Hey, Baraza unaanza kuitana tena kwangu, nakuja kwangu alafu naita watu waende kwako. Yaani si uko na audacity. Ito audacity. On audacity, yeah. Good morning. Let's look at the newspaper headlines. Looking in at the business daily. Financial losses from an adverse event often exceed what MSMEs can cover with informal risk mitigation. I think there's a story there by Japheth Ongalo on page 9. On intelligence. South Sudan asks Ruto to end Joe port monopoly. South Sudan imesema tafadhali mtukufu rais wa Kenya William Ruto tafadhali finya Joe kidogo, tuliza Joe. Amefanya monopoly ya port. Autoport Limited has been handling bulk of Juba's imports. Kir says the shift will ensure smooth flows of goods. Okay, logistics. Dominic Omondi. The South Sudan government has asked President William Ruto to end monopoly of a farm associated with the family of former Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho for handling cargo destined for a neighboring country from the Mombasa port through rail line. In a U-turn, South Sudan's President Salva Kiir now wants Dr. Ruto to allow goods to and from his country to be cleared at the port of Mombasa and not at the Nairobi Freight Terminal, NFT. Juba wants more farms, including compact console base, MCT, and Mitchell Coast to be allowed to handle its goods in Kenya as it seeks to cut the monopoly, right? So it said that Autoport Freight Limited has been monopolizing the clearing of goods that belongs to South Sudanese government, right? And they are saying, no, we earn more. Players, some of Dr. Kinyo's frozen property, Dr. Kinyo Kokotini, Dr. Kinyo's frozen property, ESCC says his net salary for the period was shillings 11.6 million. So properties, frozen 3 pieces of land in Ruiru, valued at 95 million, 5 parcels of land in Nairobi Kajiado, valued at 68.8 million, 1 parcel of land in Laikipia, valued at 18 million, Toyota Prado undisclosed amount cash, Kenya shillings 0.5 million, cash in yuan 0.3 million. Moses Kuria pick for Keb's chair, caught up in shillings 278 million, and explained well case ni Dr. Jeremiah Kamau ambaye metafutwa amesema Moses Kuria alikuwa amemfanyia nomination for chair, Keb's chair. The High Court has frozen more than 19 properties estimated to be worth 278 million belonging to New Kenya Bureau of Standards, KEBS. Board Chairman Jeremiah Kamau Kinyua. The world is suspected to have been acquired through bribes while he worked at the Kenya Revenue Authority, KRA. Mr. Kinyua was appointed by the Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria, the chairperson of the National Standards Council, the policy-setting organ for KEBS, which is at the center of sugar scandal in January. Okay, Istanbul was on last week when the High Court allowed the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, ESCC, to bar him from disposing of the properties pending an application for forfeiture of the assets to the state. Justice Esther Minor allowed the application by ESCC, freezing the properties. Dr. Kenya previously worked as the head of a field enforcement operations unit at the Kenya and Revenue Authority and Nairobi, an anti-graft suspect. Okay, it is an anti-graft suspect. Thuge plans local dollar bond to ease pressure. The Central Bank of Kenya CBK Governor nominee Kamau Thuge plans to float a local dollar-dominated bond to reach Kenyans who are holding over 1 trillion in deposits to release the green back in fresh efforts to ease pressure on the Kenyan shillings. DTB Group profit jumped 11% on larger loan book. DTB Group reported a 10.9% growth in earnings in first quarter ended March, helped by the higher income from lending and transactions. Sun King gets 18 billion to fund solar buyers. Global off-grid energy company Sun King is set for $130 million, 18 billion Kenya shillings, financing that will see it sell products such as its solar lanterns to customers in Kenya on credit, with expected payments to be used to settle debt. Okay. As a Business Daily, looking in at the People Daily, how matatu tax will add Kenyans hidden in plain sight. Advanced tax on passenger vehicles will raise costs of doing business for PSVs, taxis and trucks. These will add workers as they will pay more if finance bill is passed. As a mere pledges to fight against the proposal, page 4 and 5 of the People Daily. US kicks up storm after Museveni signs law banning LGBTQ ties. Okay, mambo kimechamuka kwa Uganda on LGBTQ. All set for first Madaraka Day fit. And a big face-off tonight's Europa League finals. Ayaji to get fitted for NIS Central Bank jobs. Actually, our good brother Aji refused to disclose his worth. Sisemi na sisemi. Me, I'm not saying. Okay. That legal public prosecution now didn't Haji at County Hall when he was being vetted at a position of Director General of the National Intelligence Service. And NIS Central Bank of Kenya Governor nominee Dr. Kamau Tuge at County Hall for his vetting of Finance Committee of the National Assembly. All right. There is a story on the People Daily looking at the Star. Raila wants tax bill out. Makes fresh demands. Sabina Chege kicked out Mark Mwenje named deputy minority whip for Azimio. Aji refuses to reveal net worth. Tuge, what's shillings 450 million. Bill wants schools to have gender neutral uniforms. Okay. Where? Okay. And page 6. It's a serious contrast between Kenya and Uganda. So in Kenya, there's a bill that wants schools to have gender neutral uniforms and toilets. Okay. Improving quality. Over 110,000 teachers required to address shortage. Shortage, says TAC. City Hall to charge shillings 3,000 for yellow fever vaccine from July. They're going to lipishwa yellow fever. Unalipishwa 3,000 Kenyan shillings. The Standard is back to the streets. No talks. As Azimio leaders say they will not resume bipartisan talks because government is pushing the finance bill that will worsen the cost of living. Many demonstrations are the likely step on page 4 of the Standard. As the mere resolutions reject the finance bill in totality. Mark Mwenje picked as Deputy Minority Whip of National Assembly President Sabina Chege. Finance bill as presently crafted must be withdrawn and replaced by a bill that appreciates Kenyan suffering. Kenya Kwanza must agree that all Jubilee MPs who have defected to have resigned and to resign and face by-elections. Okay. Suspended by partisan talks until the conditions are met. Amesema wataki hata kidogo. 7 Tribes Scoop New TSC proposed goals return to own route as power men. KPLC blow as Scott All's 21 billion tender. Union meters. Well, okay. Looking in at the Daily Nation, a big standoff over tax. Members of the public service sector unions participated in a procession outside Parliament buildings in Nairobi on Monday to protest against the tax proposal in finance bill. I have no apologies. Aji taken to task over withdrawal of court cases. Employ teachers on contract to fix biting shortage by says senators. Okay, but in retirement, I'm on the Apple story. I think that is it on the papers this morning. On the Taifa Leo, Rais Msafiri gharama Rais Ruto amekuwa akiandamana na roba kubwa na kutumia mabilioni ya pesa ya nchi inayotatizika pakubwa kiuchumi. Raila atoa sharti jipya kwa serikali, atakuwa bunge wa Azimio walioama kupigiwa kura upya. Ajitetea vikali mbele ya wabunge. Mkurugenzi mteule wa NIS ameshutumiwa kwa kukosa uadilifu. Haya, ni magazeti siku ya leo. All right, what is the state of the nation?
Well, I'm very happy that the court has suspended the Kenya Power procurement process, that tender of 21 billion. The last time I was here, you would remember I spent quite a few minutes speaking about it. And I told you that tender is specifically for the provision of transformers. The 21 billion tender is basically about provision of transformers to the Kenya Power electricity connection network. And there are 6 registered providers of transformers in this country. 3 of them are local manufacturers. They assemble transformers from scratch. One of them has already been put under by the banks for failure to pay the mortgages that they have taken, because Kenya Power has categorically locked out the local manufacturers. You have a company called Empower, you have East African Cables who have purchased a transformer production company in TZ, and you have the one that is based in Kitengela that has been taken by the bank because they have been pre-qualified to provide transformers, but when the awarding of contracts come in the recent years, Kenya Power will only prefer these three companies who do not produce transformers in this country. You know, if you're a local manufacturer, you attract some waivers when it is a matter of tax. So these international companies have just attained CL12 of registration in Kenya, but their accounts are some are in Dubai, some are in Cayman Islands, and these are the people who are getting the 100% award of those contracts. We have a law that is pending in Parliament that is seeking to ensure that any contract that it's not beyond 20 billion shillings is given to local companies, not until such a time you can establish that we do not have the local manpower to actually meet the demands of such a contract. Then that is the only time you are able to actually give an international company. And therefore, in the recent past, these companies, and I wish one of these findings, because I know you love fact-finding, you can visit Kikuyu constituency in a place called Loosegate. There's a company called Empower that has invested a lot of money in bringing machines, helping them to construct transformers from scratch. But these people in their entire existence have not been given any single contract to supply transformers to Kenya Power. And therefore, I think it is very important that it has been suspended, because these three local manufacturers in their letter to Kenya Power are only asking to be given 20% of the business. Okay. And I think as a matter of why we have Kenya Kwanza government, they have said that we want to grow the local manufacturer. We want to encourage him to work. One of the way to encourage local manufacturers to work is to give them tenders to be able to supply government, who is the biggest consumer. And therefore, I think with that suspension, and we have a new CEO at Kenya Power right now, we need to reroute on how we do business. The other one will be on the issue of the independent power producers. Are you aware that Kengen, who is government and share-owned company, is selling electricity unit at 23 shillings to Kenya Power? But an independent power producer like Bitok, who would have the capacity to produce electricity, is selling the same unit to Kenya Power at 192 shillings. The disparity therein is just amazing, how some private contractors can exploit Kenya Power for their own personal gains, because one of the reasons we have our units, electricity units, becoming expensive, there is a cost there. Nowadays, they don't show it when you buy your units, but there is a cost there called the fuel charge. You'd find Bitok owns a company that is using generator to produce electricity, and the same cost is passed on to Mwananchi at an exorbitant rates that we have not had. And therefore, if this country can lean on how we procure our transformers, how we procure power as produced by private contractors, we will promotely be able to lower the cost of electricity to more than half, because some of these charges are being passed on to consumers, because those producing electricity have gone to bed with government officials, and that particular cost is being transferred to Mwananchi to bear that burden. Therefore, I think one of the best way we need to ensure that we increase production in this country. One of the deterrent thing that is making producers and manufacturers skip this country, it is our tariff charges when it comes to power. Cost of power. And I think that is one. We need to rein on how much does Ketraco spend in doing electricity transmission. How do we lean on the Energy Regulatory Authority to ensure that Kenyans are cautioned against exorbitant cost of electricity? Because I have told you, total over 50% of your bills is on tax. And therefore, we need to look at, even if we do not lower tax, are we able to lower cost of production? Because the instruments of production are being procured in a very suspicious, corrupt manner. That's one of the things that is making our power become very expensive.
All right, okay. Good to see you, Orogo. Good morning.
Good morning.
Pole kwa sisi kuchelewa. Unakunja microphone atomakuwekea tu vizuri.
I am elated. Thank you so much. Right. And apologies for the arrival. These towns can be, the traffic can be so high sometimes. But it's fine. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Okay. The government has what did you say? Has disputed your statement that there's traffic. Brenda, state of the nation.
Kenya Power is really unsettling. I think being 2023, it's time we took away the monopoly because they're taking advantage of it because tutabaki na nani if we don't have to use Kenya Power. I mean, from the procurement processes to the cost of, if I was randomly just checking at my Kenya Power bills and you see if you are supposed to buy tokens, the amount of tokens that you're getting are less than half the amount you pay. The rest goes to levies and all that. And it's saddening to see that this is a monopoly, yet they continue to subject the public to higher costs of getting power. This is 2023. We should not be talking about this. I mean, having electricity is a basic need right now. Because if you talk about the world moving digital, you need electricity. The same Kenya Power has been frustrating efforts by people to even seek alternative ways of getting power. Solar, for instance, if you want to install solar panels in your home and all that, you may say that fine, they're avoiding competition, they want to capitalize, but at what cost to the people? So the other thing that I picked apart from Kenya Power is our processes of who we appoint to public offices. It's saddening that if the court is already freezing assets for somebody who's just been appointed the chairperson of the National Standards Council, there's a policy setting organ of KEBS. Yet this is a person that our trade CS has chosen to be his chairperson, to chair such a very important organ. Right in the middle of a sugar scandal, you're bringing in somebody who has cases, who has his property being frozen for being unexplained wealth. That is corruption. Let us not sugarcoat that the wealth is unexplained and all that. So let us call corruption, let us call theft for what it is. And it's a challenge to our leaders, and especially the Kenya Kwanza government. The government is still struggling to give appointments. Let it not just be a reward system for loyalists and all that. Can you look at what is the background of this person that I'm appointing to these seats? Because right in the middle of a sugar scandal, you are putting the lives of Kenyans in danger. We see Mumia's sugar packets in supermarkets being sold, yet the factory stopped operations. The people in Mumias have never seen smoke coming out of that factory in the longest time. But how do you explain the presence of that? So right in the middle of a sugar scandal, that KEBS is in the middle of it, because how did they authorize those products to be in the shelves for consumption? Then you find the trade and industry CS giving an appointment to somebody who also has a corruption case tied to it. So it's a challenge to both any appointing authority currently. If you want to be clean, at least just appoint people who have less scandals or at least a bit clean. Yeah. Okay.
State of the nation, Orogo.
Well, I am actually also elated by the issues of the cost of power, and I think it's one of the symptoms that you're talking about. Basically, that is all over the cost of living and everything. Bitok. Kenya is not a unique case to the rising cost of electricity and power production. Right down south, South Africa is now recording a $51 million of, towards the cost of power. And they are forced to do load shedding every day, almost 24 hours, a country that is industrialized down south. And so when we come to this country, I think like my colleagues have intimated that I think it's important to reconsider the companies and, and who is producing power vis-a-vis the cost of that production. We have so far cried hue that monopoly within Kenya Power, as a major power generating or supply company should actually be one thing to be discussed about. But I think it is something that should be, it's reaching a time that we should really begin this conversation. Then not only the cost, but even as my colleague has mentioned here, that can we even look at what is involved in the production, and all these things that we are looking at. But we talk again, we are into this in the background of trying to discuss on environmental, costly ways of production of power, alternatives. Solar production alternatives have been pioneered in this country. I think there's a large, huge solar panels around Ngong and Ngong Hills somewhere that I think we should also look at the cost review and let us see what is the cost of the production of a renewable energy and other means of energies as opposed to just power production and electric power production. So I think for me, this is what we, as a country, it comes a time when we need to discuss this properly. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's get straight into the conversation of the day, which of course has split the country into two. Some are saying no, some are saying yes. And now those who are saying no in totality. They're not giving any exemptions. And those who are saying yes are also saying yes in totality. It has to go the way it is. All right. And that is a tax bill. That is the finance bill 2023-2024. That is said to go to Parliament. Yesterday, Azimia made a statement saying that we are not going to support any bit of it. Not even the cover. Nothing. They don't want anything to do with it. Nothing. Zero. Even the year 2023, 2024, our Turkey. They don't want anything to do with the finance bill. So I don't know if you guys have taken time to really analyze and get to understand, in the interest of the public, on what are the gains and what are the losses in this finance bill. We get right into it. And I'll start with you, Brenda.
I tried to go through the finance bill and basically to just point out the gains are there, but they're not as many. The losses are more on the public. And of interest would be that the tax bracket has been increased because initially, if you are a small business, if your business does not make up to 500,000 annually, then you're not up to $1 million annually, then you're not subjected to taxes. But now with the finance bill, this is supposed to introduce taxes to up to it's reducing that bracket from 1 million to 500,000 to mean that the government is seeking to collect taxes from as many people as they can. Because if you talk about 500,000 annually, hustlers, mama mboga, the people who do the border businesses and that. So it's basically expanding what they call the turnover tax. That is the taxes that will be charged on the sales that you make as a business. So the micros wamefikiwa. The upper band also of taxation has also moved because initially businesses that would make up to 50 million annually were subject to 30% income tax on their profits. Right now, that has been reduced. With the finance bill, that is set to be reduced to businesses making up to 15 million. So basically, it's the government wanting to look for more avenues that they can reach, that they can
Get more
taxes. Because you see, KRA has been taxed to give the government up to 3 trillion, up from 2 trillion in the next within the next financial year. Then there's also the issue of the digital asset tax, that is cryptos, which I still maintain we do not have structures to control. What do we even understand what cryptocurrency is? Out of a population of 44 million, only 4 million people have cryptocurrency, are operating in that, the digital currency, the currencies, the NFTs. So they're introducing a 3% levy on the same. Then the digital content creators are also being subjected to a 15% withholding tax on their product. So whether you are putting out content that is educational, entertainment, social, anything that you're posting to be paid, you're going to be subjected. So basically, the tackle is going to be subjected to that 15% withholding tax. Well, kimewafikia. Then new pay rates, if you earn a gross of more than 500,000 Kenya shillings, you're going to be subjected to 35% up from 30%. That is in pay. Of course, the rest of us are on the 30%. Then the controversial 3% housing levy that is being introduced as a new statutory deduction on anybody with a pay slip. So again, the benefit, the fact that we are being forced to contribute, they keep on saying that this is not a tax, this is a saving scheme. Why are you forcing people to save? If I do not want that house and you're giving me an option of opting out of it after 7 years, the National Housing Development Fund is supposed to give structures of how you can opt out of it after 7 years. So you do your contributions, and after 7 years, if you're not found eligible for affordable housing, then you choose what to do with that money. But again, when you want to withdraw from that after 7 years, it's going to be subjected to another tax. So you tax it from me, then after 7 years, again, whatever I've accumulated is also taxed if I opt out of it, or if you find me not eligible for affordable housing. Then the VAT on petroleum products is what really caught my mind. Apart from housing levy, I think is being given a very... It's been given publicity, yet that is not where the beef is. My beef is on petroleum products because they want to increase it from the current 8% to 16%. So this 16% would mean that the cost of production in the manufacturing world is going to rise. Cost of transportation is going to rise. Who is going to bear the brunt of this? Already, it's tears at the pumps. What is going to happen? Because we are going to face a situation where the price of fuel in this country is going to be at an all-time high. We've never experienced that. So if this bill passes as it is currently, then that is what you're going to experience. Of course, Kenya Power also roped in because they will up their tariffs in the name of diesel, in the name of God knows what else, but petroleum products they use to make sure that we have electricity running. So basically everything is going to be affected if VAT is up to 16% on petroleum products. The other one, that excise duty that is supposed to be delivered instantaneously, because if a betting farm, lotteries and all that are already subjected to farms. We saw betting farms withdraw from sponsorships. We saw betting farms close down, which caused unemployment to our people locally. And now they're being told that this excise duty that is going to be charged on you is going to be up from 7.5% to 20%. But not only that, this 20% taxes is supposed to be paid within 24 hours. There's also the issue of taxes that are charged on rents that landlords are supposed to give to pay out. They're also supposed to make sure that they appoint agents to collect rents on their behalf. And part of the responsibilities of these agents is that they're supposed to also remit these taxes within 24 hours. So there's a situation where Kenya Revenue Authority wants to maximize on how much they collect in a day, and also just to streamline the reporting processes, because sometimes there's the issue of if you're a company and you're collecting taxes, you have to do it before the 20th of every month. So that is supposed to change. It's going to be instantly. You collect this tax and you remit it. Umebet, you win your bet. Inaenda saa hiyo. Inakatwa na inaenda the same day. 24 hours.
Kwa sababu unataka kukula pesa ya bet na hujapeana ushuru.
Then urembo, gharama, cosmetics. There's the introduction of 5% on excise duty on cosmetics, fake hair, fake nails, fake eyelashes, fake beards. I was surprised there are fake beards in this country. So
are there? Okay.
Beard gang wamefikiwa hapa. And then there's the issue of how you appeal to the tax to the High Court. If you have a dispute with KRA, a tax-related dispute, of course you have to go to the tax appeals tribunal. So KRA will now require that when you have such a dispute and you want to appeal to the High Court, you're supposed to deposit 20% of whatever amount is in dispute to KRA before you proceed to appeal. What does that communicate in terms of access to justice? Because if I have a case and I have gone to the tribunal and I feel that I have not gotten favorable judgment from the tribunal, and I want to appeal to the High Court, which is equally my right, why am I required to deposit this 20%? It creates a perception that already I am wrong. So I have to give KRA this 20% as security. It's a tax issue. It's a bit tricky. It communicates to what are we doing to our right to access to justice to the people. So those are the main areas, the main losses that I see that Kenyans are facing should the finance bill pass as it is.
What are the wins? You guys are only focusing on the losses. What are
the wins? Is the LPG, that is cooking gas and all that, is going to be made tax exempt. Currently, it is amongst the vertible goods. The cost of airtime and data is supposed to go down, but that is not a win per se, because the same finance bill is upping the cost of is upping the money transfer.
Cost of transactions.
Yeah, the cost of transactions. So why should I buy my airtime, or why should I buy data cheaply or airtime cheaply? But then if I want to transact on M-Pesa, mmeongeza. So that I think the losses are way low unless somebody else is more positive.
Those
but for me, I think
so
our losses are. I think there's need for proper dialogue on it. There's need for maybe withholding some of these things currently, because mwananchi anaumia already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Muchendu, should it pass or should it not pass?
You know, there is a lot of lies that has been told about this finance bill, and even as we look at it, Bitok, we must be able to tell our people the truth. I will start my input by saying that 2 years ago, seated right here with you, if you would remember, I told you that whoever becomes president in 2023 will have to make very painful decisions, because 2 ways we will get out of our debt hole that we are in. It is to widen the tax net, and number 2, to borrow some more. Those things were going to happen. And I told you, regardless of the politicking of the day, facts are that if this economy is going to move, Kenyans must be ready for some more painful decisions, like the ones that are being made by this finance bill. And I'll start by debunking the lie that landlords are said they must now appoint the agents who will collect their taxes for them. If I read the subsection 3AA of this finance bill, it is saying a person who receives rental income on behalf of the owner of the premise shall deduct tax therefrom, provided that only a person appointed by the commission in writing for the purposes may deduct tax under this section. A person who deducts rental income tax under this section within 24 hours after the deduction was made limit the amount so deducted to the commissioner together with a return in writing of the tax deducted and such other information as the commissioner may require. Now, this applies only in the case where the landlord, he himself, has chosen to appoint an agent. Not every agent, Bitok, is licensed by the commissioner, the KRA commissioner, to deduct tax on behalf of the owners of these premises. In fact, in the same finance bill, it has lowered the rent income tax, Bitok, from 10% to 7.5%. And that means that the fact that the landlord will pay 2.5% lower on rental income tax, that particular reduction may be passed on to those people who are renting those premises. The landlords will now be in a position to lower the cost of rent because they will be paying 2.5% less of the rental income tax. And therefore, if a landlord, Bitok, chooses not to appoint an agent, he does not need to remit that particular income immediately, the 24 hours. This is only something that is applicable to those agents who are already in writing being given permission to do so by the Kenya Revenue Authority. And therefore, the misconception that this finance bill is forcing every premise owner to appoint an agent is a lie that must be pointed out to be a lie. Now, Bitok, I want to debunk another falsehood that is being propagated by the people on the other end. The lie is that the finance bill 2023 is taxing money paid out as insurance compensation, Bitok. That is not true. I'll tell you, the fact and the truth, not every insurance compensation is being subjected to taxation as claimed. Only an instant where the owner of such good has already deducted input tax and then is compensated for the loss of such goods, and the compensation included VAT. Then that VAT is to be limited to KRA since the owner had already claimed input before the loss being compensated. If you lose goods that you have already deducted the input tax on it, and then you are compensated for the total amount, you are supposed to still remit that VAT on those goods because you have already been compensated for the same.
Let us assume my car. If I lose my car in an accident,
yes,
am I charged tax on compensation?
No, you are not charged as long you are not charged. You know that's what they are telling people. That, for instance, one of the way they are selling their agenda on the housing levy is telling people that money you save for 7 years will again be taxed when you receive them. It is a lie. It is a complete lie that they have manufactured to be able to tell people not to pay the 3% housing levy. I'll tell you, Bitok. One of the biggest lender of money to this country, Bitok, is China. The money that we get from the Exim Bank are normally money derived from the the savings of the People's Republic of China. They have been able to come up with a culture where today every Chinese saves 50% of his earning. And I will tell you, there is no country that has succeeded in coming up with a saving plan in the name of voluntary saving. Bitok. Have you seen today's headlines screaming on when people are retiring and they are not enjoying their retirement because they find they are being responsible of their children and their grandchildren, because we did not entrust our saving culture in our laws. That Bitok today would only gladly accept voluntarily to save money when there is the party after party. It's very hard. It's very hard. And therefore, today in this republic, we have the biggest number of retirees who are struggling not only to meet their medical things and to meet their day-to-day bread, but they are also struggling to feed their families who are supposed to have been the people helping them when they retire. It is because in this country, and Bitok, you would remember, I have also discussed here about the savings of NHIF and that is NSSF, that a president who is earning 1.9 million also saves 500 shillings, like the person earning 11,600. Is there any seriousness in putting and structuring our savings culture in our law so that tomorrow this nation does not have a burden? Do we really need to finance the cash transfers to the old people? If we had a very clear saving plan, tomorrow we do not need to give charity to old people, because the cash transfer that we do as a republic to our old, it is now a charity because most of them did not participate in actually having a saving culture that, and again, this 3% Bitok is a fund that is pegged on a certain interest, income interest. And therefore, if you are saving, like, say you are saving sets up to be 700,000, that is the principal amount you have put, it comes with an interest that is earned through this fund.
100%.
And therefore, I think eventually they will need to amend some laws to ensure that they incorporate the kind of percent that this money that you put every month that goes. And therefore, I think it is important as we look at this finance bill, let us be very objective. Let's not tell lies about it. And I'll tell you, there are very serious gains that I have gone through in this finance bill. And as we go on, I will be able to tell you like almost 11 gains that people gain with this. But bottom line is that... Yes, bottom line is that, of course, I also have issues that I feel that should be amended to be able to go in tandem with the Mwananchi who is currently also struggling. But the point is, and this is the truth, if we want to get out of where we are, we will rather be taxed Bitok rather than continue getting very expensive loans. And I will tell you, the World Financial Institution in Washington and in New York, the World Banks of today, the IMF of today, the Commercial Bank, African Development Bank, Exim Bank, these banks are out to make money on behalf of the savings from the respective people who have put money in them. And therefore, Kenyans continue to bear the burden of paying very expensive loan. If you compare all the levies that are being imposed on Kenyans on this finance bill, Bitok, vis-a-vis the alternative of going to borrow expensive loans, we would rather be taxed and not get expensive loans that will continue to burden us with unnecessary percentage. Because today I've told you, on the local concession that the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta and his government got, we are now paying in excess of 100 billion in interest, not the premium amount. Not the premium amount. Today, the government has to pay over 100 billion shillings in interest on the local concessions. And therefore, for us to be able to move away from that, we would rather be taxed a little bit, we be pushed a little bit, and we will end up paying less, rather than telling us, no tax Kenyans, go and take loans that will eventually destroy this country in the near future.
Orogo, what are your thoughts on the finance bill 2023-2024?
I mean, it's quite sickening. always to have this conversation on a we versus them. And you've heard that some sentiments that points towards we are on this other side. They're on this other side. This is, I think, to begin a conversation from that point.
Who's on which side?
You know, it purely gives you direction on how, you know, the points we will be talking about, not really objectively.
I've asked you about the finance bill.
You know, I am just beginning this up. That is what.
You're becoming a politician.
That is the sentiment I have had before I come to finance bill, because the issue about finance bill is when you compare it is an issue that touched, and my sisters mentioned it. It has no here or there. It is Kenyans at the center of this thing. And let me go to this because now directly to it. We are morphed into thinking, Bitok, that there are only few areas to converse about in this finance bill. And you've heard that there are almost 9 issues on the finance bill. But the political class are drawing us to understand that there are only 3 contentious issues. You know, the housing levy fund, the excess duty. There are around 9 of them. And that has got implications, political implications, legal implications, environmental implications, even in our own international implications on this. And I would try to be very brief on it because some of them my colleagues have touched on. Look at the issue, and I think the issue about the excess duty. Who do we listen to? Do we listen to ourselves, politicians, or do we listen to professionals?
Okay.
There are a number of submissions that have been made professionally before the committee, the Housing Committee, the Departmental Committee on Finance and Budgeting. A number of professionals have given their view. Okay. And also treat Kenyans that now we understand that even different factions that have given, the media owners associations have given their view about this, the excess duty. Taxing, content on advertising. They say it has got an implication, and they are professionals, which I think you're also part of the media association, even though it's not the mainstream. Yeah. But I think it's your view that the moment, you begin to introduce a tax, a very harsh penalty has got an implications of losing 2 billion in the media industry. And this has got an effect into the ecosystem of the media in itself. What will this happen? It will make the media industry to even force other personnel, because they cannot sustain, employers and their employees. So that's why I ask, who do we listen? Again, on the digital content creators, 15% monetization on the content. This is an industry, the digital industry is growing. It has not been established yet. And yet there is an introduction of 15% of this. And I wish I would listen to how we try to deviate. Is it 15% tax? Yes, it is. This has got positive bit of it? No, it doesn't. Because this is an industry that is growing, and young people, which probably, Bitok, these are what I call the hustlers that these governments appealed to, that are now seeking other alternatives apart from the mainstream employment to make a living. And maybe
the government is reading blogs. You've been seeing these YouTube millionaires and all that. So the government is like,
yes, making millions. I think this is my view. I was a little bit, considerate when there were submissions. Allow me to complete. Okay. And there's of course the issues of pay as you earn, the 35%. This is significantly will have an impact for me because you see, Bitok, there already other taxes that people are being taxed already. And my colleague has mentioned the issues of NSSF, mentioned NHIF. And these people, personally, when you look at your gross versus the net, you could actually see it's really gross. Like you said, it's gross. It's not gross as it is. That of course you're being a percentage, 35% now will be levied on your pay. And then of course there are other taxes that you have to pay. So when you look at your net, you go with what you look at, that you go with at home is questionable. But of course, briefly as I'm concluding, the contentious bit of it is not only for this housing for me, because of course And for me, Citra, that is why I said this conversation, I want to see it not from a point of us versus them, because I also fault the opposition in their submissions in this. Because I was coming to a point where I said, the Honorable Raila Odinga in I think it's around 2018, rallied the troops to support the VAT tax by then.
Yes.
What has changed? If I wish that would have been answered. So for me, I'm seated here objectively looking at this issue, not talking any position versus government, or government or us versus them. So, like I've said, the contentious bit of this bill for me is on the tax appeal tribunals. We have a number of court cases, that have been, have been fronted against KRA, and the discussion is that these court cases hinder KRA from collecting taxes. That is the discussion that is in the political class, and therefore, as my colleague mentioned, even before your case is being heard, you have to depart with, I think, 20% of this of tax on this. How has this led to our conversation? Because this is a legal issue. The Court of Appeal pronounced itself. The Supreme Court, the DCJ pronounced itself on this issue on a ruling that was done that the Treasury has no absolute say with regards to directing on how this tax appeals tribunal should be guided. And therefore, they gave a warning, and they gave their own ruling, I think, in December 2018, that it is in the jurisdiction of the court, not on the Treasury, to decide on what percentage the tax will be levied on tax appeals tribunals. So I foresee a lot of issues that probably, as my colleague has said, as we go by, we would look at the implications. Like I said, it has got legal implications, it has got political implications of it, and equally environmental implications on it. Like my colleague is saying, if you do not tax the plastic manufacturing locally, then you're increasing the level of plastic production in this country. In 2017, the Kenyan government said that any products on plastic would actually be taxed, but now it is free. There's no much levy bit of it. So as we go by, I think it would be very, for us to objectively, I keep on saying that when I come to this show is to demystify objectively some of these issues that are making headlines on this.
You're right. Okay, any positives?
I think that has been mentioned by my colleague is on the reduction on non-taxing on the liquid LPG. I think that is a takeaway. But of course, we also need to understand whether is it totally out of levy, or is it the issues of we will try to tax the gas cylinders, not the gas. So I think these are issues that we need to put into perspective.
I thought you were saying you are referring to the document.
No, I'm just saying there's a conversation that should be opened about that.
So that's the only gain you're saying.
Yeah, I think that is the only gain for me in this. Yeah.
And I think, Bitok, it's also important to demystify the issue about pay. I have seen members of parliament who are opposed to the finance bill shouting at the top of their voice that government employees will be taxed payee, but they are not kind enough to explain the bracket. The 35% is only applicable to anybody earning more than $500,000. Anybody who earns less than $500,000, the pay remains the same at 30%. And even this 5% is only taxed over and above everything that you earn above 500,000. For instance, if as a member of parliament you are earning 600,000, it means you are only getting an increase in your tax of 5,000 shillings.
Oh, okay.
So let's not shout that telling Kenyans that the reason why the members of parliament are shouting at the top of their voice and those on the other side talking about the 3% housing levy, because they cannot talk about pay, because pay is touching on those civil servants who are earning $500,000, and because the members of parliament also don't want to part with that 5,000, they want to rally Kenyans behind their quest not to pay the extra 5,000 shillings on their basic pay. And therefore, let us look at this finance bill. Yes, there are things that are open for amendment to be talked, and it is the reason why the government will put proposals, take them to Parliament, and then they are commented to the respective select committee in Parliament, where, as he has said, professionals and those of us, I am personally one of those people who have participated in supplying a memorandum to Parliament on the areas we think that the finance bill can be shaped a little bit better. For instance, it's called the advance tax on motor vehicles. We feel that is an area that can be looked into by Parliament, so that because we are talking about vehicles that do transportation of either people or goods. And this will adversely affect the common Kenyans who are out there who use matatu every day, because the finance bill currently is proposing for every passenger carried for every passenger seat to be paying 100 shillings every month, or alternatively of I think it's quite a sizable amount. That is one of the area we feel that needs to be looked at. You cannot fail to see that this finance bill has zero-rated tax on things like maize flour, cassava, all the cereals that have become the staple food of Kenyans. That is something that has been zero-rated by this finance bill talk. The same finance bill has zero-rated tax on fertilizer products, so that Kenyans are able to do more products. The same finance bill. It has also increased the cost of importing agricultural products that are majorly produced in this republic. This now allows the local manufacturers and the local farmers to be able to get good value on what they plant and what they produce, because they have now been given a level playing ground that when you look at the cost of importing and the cost of buying locally, you'd rather go locally, and that also empowers your fellow Kenyans. So there are quite a number of things that also address where you have a little bit of increase. You'll find that on the other end, there is a reprieve in a way. We are not saying that that document is perfect. It is subject to being amended through Parliament, because it is a law that is current before Parliament. And Article 1 of the Constitution confers the authority of this constitution on the people, and it goes further to say that they can exercise it directly or indirectly through their elected leaders. And in this case, Parliament is the representation of the people, and Parliament has invited people to bring their memoranda. I think it's only fair for us to wait and see the document that will be presented to the Committee of the Whole House will have been amended in which form, what will be the gain, what will be the loss, and then we can be able to comparatively and comprehensively look into that document and say, well, this is not a perfect document, but it's a good document. This is a document we feel you can look more further into this and that. And therefore, I think as much as Kenyans of all walks of life have the leeway and they have the place to be able to question this finance bill, it's also fair to give the finance bill its lightful process so that we see the product that is brought for amendment at the Committee of the Whole House. What will they amend? And therefore, whatever they bring for the third reading and final approval is what will determine whether this finance bill is appealing to Kenyans or otherwise.
Okay. Brenda, you have any reactions?
My reaction is on the housing levy. Unfortunately, I didn't think we were supposed to talk about this much again. But the fact that, my colleague has spoken about mandatory savings, having a mandatory savings schemes run by the government, and the fact that the government would not have to pay old people if these savings are done, or if we have to make it statutory for people to have a savings as a country. So it is okay. It is a very good thought to have to ingrain the savings culture in people. But what are you saving? Saving is supposed to be for a rainy day. You're supposed to save when you're already comfortable. You're not going to tell me that I'm supposed to save these monies, yet I do not have that which I want to save. I cannot meet my basic needs. So why are you asking me to save at this point? Like, it should be voluntary. But if the government has to be on it, there has to be proof that this money is going to be saved properly, is going to be managed properly. He's mentioned NSSF, he's mentioned NHIF. The two bodies that every person who's salaried in this country contribute to mandatorily. We're already seeing that for the very first time we saw pensioners crying foul of their pensions delaying because NSSF did not have that money. Where is that fund? Why would I serve in the public service, or why would I just do my work, save on NSSF all those years, only for my pension to delay because the government or somebody took it somewhere and used it for something else? Then now the pensioners end up suffering. Then you're telling me to have confidence that this one for housing will be properly managed. We're facing a situation where private hospitals are turning away patients because NHIF bills have not been paid. We saw the other day the PS Health giving a warning to hospitals that they would be subjected to strict measures should they continue turning away patients or fail to deliver services because NHIF has not been paid, has not been remitted. These are private businesses. These are people who are also, they took loans to maybe expand their businesses, they will expand the hospitals, buy equipment and all that. They also need to pay, but they rely on this, the government to remit payments that they have insured under NHIF. So what confidence is a local mwananchi having that this housing fund will be properly managed if there is no proof that NHIF is being properly managed, if there is no proof that NSSF is properly managed? What if after 7 years that money is not there and they want to use it immediately after 7 years? It is okay to compare ourselves with developed countries, but we are not at that level.
So you have no problem. The only problem is management.
The problem is I need to be confident that this fund is going to be managed properly.
Otherwise unatoa.
Ni sawa naweza toa. But again, naweza toa, but the fact that I don't know if I'm eligible, because again, there are no, you should move from a point of, I know this is supposed to happen, I'm saving for this, but you're telling me that we're going to tax you this 3%, or we're going to force you to save this 3%, but then somebody else will now have to start putting rules to determine if you're eligible for it, but I'm already saving for it. Then it should have been the other way around. I think some of the suggestions in this bill have been rushed. There are gains, yes, and I wanted to point out the other one in terms of they are lowering the duty that is charged on importation for manufacturers. So at least the local manufacturers would have some sort of reprieve on that, and it would promote local. When goods are manufactured locally, the cost is set to be low at least, and if that tax is lowered, then basically the ripple effect is on the consumer, the final consumer. So that's another win. But then let us not compare ourselves with countries, because why am I being forced to voluntarily save when I do not have something to save? It is a very good idea. And also, I agree, the president is in a very tight situation. He's doomed if he does. If this proceeds, if he collects more taxes, and doomed if he borrows. So if he does not, he fails on delivering on the promises that he gave his people. But just as I said last week, it is okay to say, I promised this, nimefika huko mbele ni kubaya.
No, lakini lazima nchiendelee.
Sasa tutaenda lakini tutaenda pole. So let us take some time. I will deliver, but not at the speed that I had promised. Nimefika nikaona ni kubaya yenyewe. It is okay to step back and say that. instead of putting all this, because if clearly President Ruto wants to be a 2-term president, to complete his 10 years, then there are things he has to weigh.
Okay.
Yeah.
David Oyola, we don't have anything close at what can be called a parliament. What we have is an elective wing of the executive, a conveyor belt with chatterboxes and drums for the executive's dance floor. The bill will pass whether Kenyans like it or not. Kibaki performed because he had a real parliament that checked on him. For Muchendu's case, he has a choir gang waiting to sing praise and worship songs, and concluding it with yes, sir, salutations, amen. But then again, I find it surprising that Oyola is so undemocratic, that he feels that his sentiments are the only and available sentiments, you know? Because I would imagine that he should be more democratic in the sense that can you advise this son of Orogo? Can you advise your son? Because I think he has become another Mwajidin.
I've had the benefit to watch David
He has become a political gangster.
And my friend here in this show, because we also watch to see if we also guided by the opinions that come. And I think this is the extreme view, Bitok, that I'm very cautious about.
When he's also singing the choir,
he doesn't like it. On the other side. So my good friend David Oil, I think it's quite imperative to, for you to also be very objective, especially when you appear into these platforms and we are listening to you, and you see some of these conversations are followed widely, Bitok, and by professionals and by followers as well. But I think something that also drew my attention to the finance bill is the Retirement Benefits Act of 2016, which is also going to form a basis of, politicizing the finance bill 2023. There are varied opinions about this Retirement Benefits Act, how to amend it in the bill. The suggestion by one quarter is that, there needs to be a repeal, so that the civil servants, the deputy presidents, the vice president, the former vice presidents, and the former prime ministers, speakers as well, that really violates the law, their benefit act should be discontinued. This is also part of the conversation in this bill. But you see, we are talking about a situation where we've had politics with regards to the engagement of the former president or the retired president as to whether his retirement benefits should be discontinued because of violations of the Presidential Retirement Benefit Acts of 2016. And nothing is coincidental in politics. And I think this is inserted here purposefully. One is to cautiously try to save the situation, because I think this kind of retirement benefits should actually be discontinued when someone serves the terms and ends. This is my opinion, because however much you're a former PS, you're a former minister, you're a former vice president and a cabinet secretary, I think by the moment you were serving, you had all these benefits at your disposal, and which is enough to carry you through. And for posterity measures, I think it's important for us to discontinue this, because all the current financial and economic situation in this country would not allow us to carry the burdens of retired, civil servants and retired, except on retired civil servants and, government workers who are earning some minimum, salaries and wage. But for these, the senior most, the former presidents, and this, I think we should have also a conversation to discontinue this immediately you serve your term. But also bringing at a point where once you begin to say that, the moment you serve and you discontinued, we're in a dilemma of whether these would actually make them lack a motivation and to stipulate Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Because the moment we say that you're not going to continue with your retirement benefit acts, these guys, we would have compel them to involve themselves in a spree of corruption, to accumulate as many possible wealth as you can when you're serving term. So I think this is also important for us, that this is one of the issues that we should actually look into this, the Finance Bill 2023. So I am looking to a situation where, and my colleague just mentioned, is we really have, as a citizenry, to rethink again on meaningful public participation. Okay. Because this again, where do we have a comeback? Because the public participation at the committee is ending today. Where do we have a comeback as a citizens? If that committee and if the chair of the committee is going to meet with the CS Treasury and with the representative KRA, and we are not satisfied that some of this amendment has not been effected, we are at the mercy of the parliament. As Oyola is saying that the parliament, when it reaches the parliament, it is the tyranny of numbers. To be honest, we might have this bill passed not on the merits of conversation, but we will have this bill passed at the basis of political expediency. Which part of political factions have got a larger number of members of parliament to pass this bill and to prove the other side that they still have that political might? This is why I was very cautious, and I'm glad my colleague Muchendu proceeded before the House Committee and presented his views, and like other many Kenyans, many professionals, and many of us who are the interest of this. But I'm asking them, at the mercy of the parliament, where then do we have a comeback? Where do we have a repeal? Because indeed, as Muchendu mentioned, we have delegated power to the parliament, bicameral parliament, to pass this legislation. What if some of our amendments are not effected? Then we do not have a comeback as a citizenry. It is very unfortunate. I think this is one thing that we need to converse about.
All right. Lazarus, watching live from Dua Katagurisi. Lazarus, Ilari Mengichi, getting you well from Mount Kenya County. Santa Reba, Wakila Reba Samba Moyo. Good to see you. Good morning. Vision Total Football Kenya. Hi, Gerald, listening from the UK. Kenyan government has no money, power to build houses. The way forward is public-private partnerships, but a policy must be created to govern the program long term. Okay? Keep quiet, Churiat. I have always been in agreement with Muchendu, but on the finance bill, it looks like he has a soulless Chadais. I'm in disagreement with him today. I'm outraged. Okay, are you outraged? Our good brother Oyola is back. It must come out clear that the government want to provide housing for those not in need. The president says that they are taxing the payroll to build houses for those in Kibra who aren't on payroll. The PS is saying you can't get a house if you don't contribute. Two opposite policies. Slum dwellers won't contribute since they are casual laborers and Kibarua guys, meaning they won't qualify for their houses. Ask Orogo, where I haven't been objective. I'm an international think tank. And wait carefully what I say. Oh, man. But he doesn't even say. Oh, man, it does not even say, but international think tank. I know you're saying something.
Just to touch on the housing levy, because again, we have a finance bill that has, I've seen a finance bill released by a certain lady who is the leader of the choir at our Dead Jubilee, come up with a finance bill that is not the actual finance bill before Parliament. Now, for this housing levy, and I've said this is one way of enriching and enacting a saving culture in Kenyans. If you save for 7 years or acquire the retirement age before the 7 years are over, you have a number of options to do with what you have saved. One of the options is that you can transfer the contribution to your retirement scheme or convert it to pension. That is an option that is going to be enacted in Chapter 7 of the Housing Act. You can actually transfer contribution benefit to another registered person of your choice. If you retire or the 7 years are over and you do not want to correct what you have saved, if you have a brother or a sister or a son who would prefer to transfer, you would prefer to transfer that savings to that person, you can do that. That's an option number 2. Option number 3, you can transfer that contribution to a dependent or a spouse, if you so wish. And then number 4, you can opt to be given back your money, and that is because not every government employee is eligible for housing, because there is that capitation on how much a housing costs and whether your savings meets that. Now, I agree with my sister that there is the things in the past that do not inspire confidence in Kenyans to engage in these savings. I also believe that as we enact the Housing Act, because all these enacting changes will be made at the Chapter 7 of the Housing Act, which provides the saving plans on how people are supposed to save. I think it is important that we also enact good laws that streamlines how these government parastatals spends the money of those people who are saving. Indeed, it's very wrong for a pensioner to attain his age and not get his pension in time. And I wanted to just to touch a few things that I've also gotten benefit in this finance bill as we wind up. The cost of medical care, Bitok. You realize that most Kenyans are now heading to India to seek specialized treatment because learning of those specialized treatment in this country has become very costly. This Finance Bill 2023 proposes to zero rate medical equipment that are meant for special and they are meant for special and those specialized care. Any good that is taxable and it is especially meant to contribute in construction of hospitals which are doing specialized care will also be zero rated. And therefore, we can save Kenyans the costly trips to India, because if we zero rate the cost of specialized care medical products, then it means more investors in health can actually do it at a very low cost. And this will also provide an opportunity for Kenyans to get cheaper specialized medical health care. Now, there is you would know that the VAT Act allows the Commissioner General of KRA to adjust the specific rates of exercise duty at his own will. And that means that in an impromptu manner, you may find that a local commodity like sugar has gone up because the Commissioner General in Section 10 of the excise duty has been given power to adjust the VAT on particular product. The Finance Bill 2023 proposes to take that power away from the Commissioner General, that you cannot have the Commissioner General in an impromptu manner with a stroke of a pen increase VAT on some products. And therefore, if KRA requires to increase VAT, they would have to seek an amendment of the finance bill so that they are able to do that. And therefore, that cautions Kenyans that the impromptu increase of VAT on products, especially food products, will now not happen the way you would wake up one morning and find sugar has gone up. Now, this bill proposes that power be taken away from the Commissioner General to be able to caution Kenyans from impromptu increase of VAT. The other one is, I wanted to talk about, it is the tax relief for Bitok today. One of the major handles of those people who retire, it is medical care. Now, if as a person right now working a civil service, you would wish to invest and save on a medical facility that will help you when you retire, this finance bill proposes tax relief on someone willing to actually save money on his post-retirement medical care. And therefore, it means, Bitok, if you would be willing to be saving up money for your post-retirement health, government is willing to give you tax reliefs ranging from decrease in how much VAT you pay, how much a pay you pay, if you are willing to save on a post-retirement medical care. And therefore, it is encouraging Kenyans, rather than us getting involved in hundreds of harambes to be able to take care of retirees who have medical conditions that require exclusive attention overseas and all those things. We can allow and ask Bitok, start saving money for your post-retirement medical health, and we will also give you tax relief. And then again, when you are able to pay this post-retirement medical insurance, you are able to get a number of services that are very exclusive and at times are very costly. And therefore, I think critically looking at this finance bill without malice, without prejudice, and I think it is imperative to say that, yes, we may not have a document that is desired by every Kenyan. It has room for improvement. Okay. But I can equally tell you that there is no single Kenyan that will ever endorse 100% a document that pushes him to give or to part away with something more. Okay. But unfortunately, this is the reality that we are living in, Bitok. And I say this and I urge Kenyans that if you look at the interest rates under which we are paying the loans we have taken from various world and international banks, Bitok, vis-a-vis the amount of money accumulatively we are supposed to pay in this finance bill, I will tell you, paying tax, it is easier than incurring more very expensive loans that will mean that the excesses under which we are paying interest, it is almost 3-4 times of the total deductibles the government is actually proposing in this finance bill. Well, we may not agree 100% as Kenyans, but I think it's important that the government and Kenyans, we find a striking balance and we meet at the middle and move this country, because eventually we have to tax some more, we have to borrow some more to get this nation to move.
Okay, all right. 1 minute. Orogo and Brenda.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I agree with some of the sentiments from Muchendu that in the comparison of what if we need to borrow vis-a-vis other measures the government would have taken to to reduce the tax burden. However, we are still borrowing, and I think for us is to explain to Kenyans, because one of the things the KK government is falling short of is just explaining to Kenyans on the finance Act of 2023, the finance bill. That in itself, because I have seen a lot of what I call chest stamping and forced explanation and all these thorax when you are handling Kenyans. I think this is basically backfiring because I really don't think Kenyans will really are allergic to paying tax, but once they realize that is being overtaxed and there is no returns for service delivery, then that's become an issue to them. If there is a proper explanation and a proper involvement, minus very misread engagement by the opposition in this country, then I think Kenyans would objectively begin to see the importance of economic contributions to the building of the nation state and building of the country. The other thing I also wanted to understand is, on the other side, that's why I said, Bitok, I also need to give the devil his due. On the other side, we are having a disengaged opposition in this country who was not in touch with the realities of what Kenyans are facing as well. Because ideally, what we should be discussing is, if you have a problem with certain provisions on the bill, then what is the alternative? In democracies, we see opposition governments, and the opposition government is government in waiting. We might have even now seen if the opposition had proposed maybe a cabinet secretary, from the opposition end, who would have begun to explain to Kenyans then what would be the alternative that could be proposed to the government of the day with regards to certain provisions on this, finance bill. But we are having extreme positions that it has to be shut down now and forever. So I think this is not really well with both government and the both opposition end. So lastly, I think it's important, even with the amendments that will be proposed, Any amendment that will be proposed needs to be very sensitive to Kenyans. Listen to professionals, listen to citizens, listen to the representatives of the trade unions and of the union representatives, and objectively look at the amendments. But also, like I keep debating, what is the comeback of the citizens? Should the legislature fail, and should the judiciary equally fail to read in through and weigh into this issue? What is Kenyans going to have a comeback with with the supremacy of the Constitution and the laws that are given to them?
Okay, all right. You 1 minute, Brenda.
Adam Smith says that there's no art that a government sooner learns from the other than the art of draining money from the pockets of its citizens. Dear President Ruto, do not be that president. Do not be that government. We need the money, yes. And I'd like to support what Orogo said. The misinformation, because we're dealing with a citizenry that is increasingly informed. We are not the citizens of 1990s, where we only relied on what has been reported on radio. You're dealing with a larger population, being the younger people who can find information. But the danger of the fact that there is access to information and information is freely lying is they also have access to lies. So it's a challenge that as young people, as leaders, let us try and find the truths behind all this. Let us not blindly oppose or support stuff just because we belong to a particular side. It would take away all the objectivity if you just support blindly. And we see that happening because I'm sure if this goes to the House of Parliament, half of the people who are debating this have not read that finance bill. So it's again a challenge.
Actually, I think the MPs have not read it.
They have not, and they're already taking sides. And
if you listen to those conversations?
They are on either extremes without reading it. So let us give professionals a chance. Let Kenyans have proper information of what it is that is being discussed. And as he has proposed, it is good to have an opposition that is also proactive. We used to see a shadow government. You cannot just oppose and do not provide alternatives. You are a government yourself. You are the opposition. So also provide solutions. Do not just oppose for the sake of it. Because if we decide that we do not want this finance bill as it is, we do not want it fully. With the gains, with the losses, we do not want it. So it would be good to go. It would be good to just provide alternatives. Say that okay, fine. Hapa kuna makosa. We can provide. We can deal with this. Can this wait? This one we cannot deal in totality. We do not want this bit, but this one we can consider. Maybe lower the percentages or increase this so that we achieve that balance. So my call is let us get informed. These are things that touch on our lives. So it is only proper that you take charge of your life. By taking charge of your life means that you are involved, you participate. When you see those calls for, there's a baraza sitting for public participation on particular laws, participate. They will affect you. Stop being a disillusioned middle class person that thinks whatever happens in the political class will not affect them. It will all affect us in the long run. So, yeah, that's my call.
All right, thank you so much. At YouTube, a vision of work in general, the CS for housing say those who will contribute the most will get priority in getting the houses. It is obvious that the rich will contribute the most. How will the very poor get the houses? I think those are some of the questions that the ministry would need to answer. Orogo, we don't have anything called opposition. And do you sincerely think that this government can listen to any advice? You think so, really? Unless unaongea maneno ya maombi ya Karinga Bible, Happy Madaraka Day. Oyo la kwanza nilikutupa kwa waziri, alikuwa analia waziri, anaitwa nani, Ongalo. si mtu mzuri. Nikamtuma huko. Kama naenda kakunywa chai akanyamaza. Kasahau. Hajaniletea feedback kuniambia what happened there. Niliona tu picha akikula mandazi na chai. Sijasikia akiongea tena. Mjanja wajanja, anyone who has succeeded in life or she has always gone through the pain before gain. Popular policies like subsidies have brought us to where we are today. A good show. We meet next week. We talk about the act of leaders shall be passed. I'm Madaraka Day, folks. I was asked Muchendu, when is the government zero rating medical because he's on the table eating and steak meat? He doesn't feel the pain. I can confirm Muchendu is in the village. He's busy farming. Ajakula steak anyway.
Well, I tell people, and it's good to confirm, I am not an employee or an appointee of government. I come and give my own personal views on issues. Nikitoka hapa mimi naenda ukulima, maziwa. Nikiishi maziwa ikikuwa haijatosha mimi naenda Kajiado County kulima nyanya na watermelon. That is where we get the few coins that we come to drink coffee with Bitok in town. But meanwhile, if you need me, I'm domiciled at the Gio Village Day Award in Limuru. That's where I spend my time. And Bitok, you have been there, you can confirm. That is where I came from this morning. So let nobody confuse my own personal views on issues that is based on anything that I get out of this government. If this government actually gives me an appointment, I will gladly take it. I worked so hard to get it in power. If that appointment doesn't come, I will still stand by my conviction that I choose KK government in the belief that they will better this country and that Kenyans must feel that a small pinch. I have never lied on this platform. Anybody who has followed me, I have always insisted that regardless of who becomes president, there has to be a little bit of a pinch to every Kenyan to be able to get this country right on track. And it's important to say that William Ruto is not introducing a new tax on fuel products and petroleum products. He is correcting an ill-informed decision by the former president in 2018 to lower the VAT on petroleum from 16 to 8%. Okay. Instead, decided to give Kenyans charity in terms of subsidy, a subsidy that was being derived from borrowed money. Right. We were lowering VAT on petroleum and getting subsidy that was gotten on a very high interest. Okay. So what William Ruto, by proposing to revert back to 16%, it is to correct a mistake that His Excellency, the fourth President Uhuru did that has gotten this country in a messy place that it is today.
We are very insensitive. Very insensitive.
We'll pick that up again.
There is nothing about taxing Kenyans that will not be seen as insensitive.
It's very insensitive to the economic situation of what Kenyans are facing. Very insensitive of the global issues that Kenyans are facing. I think we would come back here and let's see how it goes through the parliament. Bitok. I wish that we would come back here, to discuss these amendments again. Yes, so that we pick it up from where we left it.
But as you say, as insensitive, it is important to look at when we get that fuel subsidy, Bitok, and the money that is borrowed, we are actually paying about 14% as Kenyan on the loans that were borrowed to pay for subsidy. We would rather revert back to 16% and lower the cost of paying for the same from that 14% to 8%.
I also want to say, it is also time that the KK government, you can only blame the previous regimes for so long. It is okay, we know they made mistakes, but it's at this point, really, it's time you start working without blaming. It's okay, we know they made mistakes that you need to correct. Can you just start working for the people? Yeah.
Lakini hajasema kama ameweka chini hivi. You need to confirm.
If you talk today, you show up in a hospital with severe headache, the first thing the doctor does is for you to have a CT scan. Okay. To establish where the problem of you having severe headache came from. And therefore, for the doctor to be able to give you a solution going ahead, he will need to understand the history of where your problem is coming from. And therefore, we we are currently just in our first year doing a CT scan on the economy as we come up with the solutions to solve the problems in this country.
Ukraine war and Russia is Uhuru
I'm sad the show has gotten fire when it is ending.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for making time this morning. It's always a pleasure. That's been the Siasa Wednesday edition of the 31st of May 2023. And it ends now. Until tomorrow, the Diaspora edition led by Kena Joel, Arama and team. I want to wish you a very good Friday. Yes. Wednesday, that is Friday because of tomorrow. And enjoy your Madaraka. Happy Madaraka Day, folks, and see you tomorrow on Diaspora edition. Bye-bye. I'll be back on Sheria Wiki edition on Friday. Bye-bye.